When the call first came through to the police dispatch, it sounded like a prank. A young woman at a donut shop was calling to tell authorities about the skeleton that she'd just seen at the top of the children's slide at a nearby playground. It wasn't Halloween. It was early spring, March, just about as far from Halloween as you can get in a year. Why would someone joke with a skeleton on some kids' play equipment? But the woman insisted that this wasn't a prank. The bones looked real, and she begged them to send officers right away. Police arriving here at Independence, Missouri's McCoy Park that afternoon may have been initially skeptical, but what they found was an incomplete human skeleton, draped with pieces of clothing, perched on the top 3 steps of the slide. What were the bones doing there? And where were they supposed to be? Was this all part of some spooky prank? When it comes to cases of the still unidentified, many questions are often unanswered. But these stories, full of unanswered questions, are still stories worth telling. And hopefully, one day, these questions will finally have answers. Today, I bring to you 2 unique tales of unidentified playground does. The bones that were found were a dark brown and had been placed in an upright position on the stairs. Many pieces of the skeleton were not there. The skull, the arms, lower legs, and several ribs were missing. The upper legs were no longer attached to the torso, and the left leg had been placed upside down. The caller, Jennifer Fisher, told authorities that her husband Sean had spotted the skeleton that afternoon when he'd brought their 2 young children to the park to swing. In 1992, McCoy Park had recently entered a period of transformation. The city had just begun construction on improvements to the park, with plans to install new bathrooms, playground equipment, and a sand volleyball court. Mr. Fisher had been intrigued to see the process of this construction, and his children were excited to play, as many of the old facilities like the slide, swing set, and jungle gym were still in working order. Very quickly, however, nearly as soon as they'd arrived, Sean had spotted the suspicious skeleton at the top of the slide. He rushed his children the few blocks home and told his wife, "I want to show you something and see if it's real." Skeptical, Jennifer told her husband that she would stop by the park on her way into work. And when she did, she was both surprised and horrified. Feeling that her husband had indeed discovered human bones at the playground, she called police as soon as she arrived at work, the donut shop. Jennifer told the local paper, Independence, Missouri's Examiner, "I guess it was a prank? Some kids must have dug it up and put it there as a joke. What a sick joke." But authorities called around to area cemeteries, and there were no reports of missing bodies, no graves dug up or caskets opened. People wondered, had the bones been unearthed by the construction equipment? But none of the employees beginning work on the park reported finding anything suspicious, and none of them had seen the skeleton at the playground the day before. Police took the bones to the medical examiner's office for analysis. Following an autopsy of the remains, the medical examiner determined that the deceased was a male of at least 40 years of age and previously standing between 5'7" and 5'10" tall. They did not find any evidence of violence on what bones remained of the John Doe, and so Sergeant Ron Hageman of the Independence Police Department told reporters, "There is no reason to suspect foul play at this point," end quote. Which I guess makes sense. But the question remains, where did the skeleton come from? Even if he had died a natural death, moving the bones of the deceased out of his resting place sure seems foul to me. And furthermore, Where is the rest of the John Doe? The medical examiner's office either did not or could not determine if the bones had been previously buried. And medical examiner John Overman told the media that without the man's skull, identification would be difficult. He did say that if they did find a skull, that they would probably bring in an anthropologist. And his statement about an anthropologist leads me to believe that the bones appeared to be quite old, but they were never dated, and no estimated PMI or post-mortem interval exists for the McCoy Park John Doe. A post-mortem interval is the time elapsed between a person's death and the discovery of their body. Without this PMI, there really is very little information to go on when searching for the John Doe's identity. Has he been dead for 10 years or 100? It seemed like the police were waiting for more bones to show up, but that never happened. They reportedly received no leads, and no other bones or skeletal pieces appeared. Back in 1992, medical examiner Marion McMillan told media that the Doe's bones would remain at the medical examiner's office until he was identified. And presumably, that is where he is today. There have been basically no updates to this case since that time. Authorities had been so silent that I thought maybe this John Doe had been quietly identified. But after some digging, I found that it is still an open case. The John Doe was added to NamUs, the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, just last fall, in November of 2022. However, there is no new news or information included in his NamUs page. All of the details I've shared about the McCoy Park Playground Doe comes from March of '92. There was never any update about the color or type of clothes he was found in. There have never been any whispers of DNA extraction, which, without teeth for dental records or a skull for artist renditions, may be the only way to identify the Doe. That is, unless someone is willing to come forward. That skeleton did not walk himself to the top of that children's slide. Someone knows something. If that person is you, please call the Jackson County Medical Examiner's Office. "26 years later, 3 states, more than 500 miles away, a dead woman was found at an apartment playground in Cincinnati, Ohio. She, too, had been put in her resting place intentionally, arranged carefully with a flower on her chest. Cincinnati Jane Doe was also found one warm spring Thursday. It was May 31st of 2018 when a young boy playing outside with his siblings spotted the body. The young child, not realizing what he had seen, ran and told his uncle that a man was laying down in the brush. The boy's uncle investigated and discovered the dead body of a female, partially buried by mulch. Responding officers found the unknown woman wearing a gray tank top and gray pajama pants, both size small. She was wearing silver hoop earrings, a silver stylist hair clip, and had 3 hair ties on her wrist. The woman's remains were taken to the Hamilton County Coroner's Office, where they determined her post-mortem interval to be several weeks, meaning that she had been dead for approximately that long before she had been found. The coroner estimated her age to be between 35 and 60 years old, and her height between 5'3" and 5'10" inches tall. An autopsy was performed and drugs were found in her system, leading authorities to believe that she had died of an unfortunate overdose. Due to the thoughtful and deliberate way that she was laid and the drugs in her system, No foul play is suspected in Cincinnati Jane Doe's case. It appeared as though the woman had been laid in her resting place by someone that cared for her, though not enough to speak with authorities about her death. Regardless of the circumstances of her passing, Cincinnati Jane Doe surely had a family or friends, people who do not know where she is. But Jane Doe's details didn't match those of any reported missing persons in the area. And for 5 years, authorities have been unable to give the woman a proper burial and a grave marker bearing her name. A renewed effort has been recently made to identify the Jane Doe, and a bust was created in her image. Perhaps she had traveled to Cincinnati from somewhere else. Maybe someone will recognize her. She was most likely Caucasian, but could have been biracial, and was wearing her graying brown hair at shoulder length. The name Schrader was inscribed on the tag of her pants, though this name also did not match any local missing persons. Despite these renewed efforts, the Cincinnati Jane Doe found at the Avondale apartment complex has continued to go unnamed. DNA is available for comparison, and if you have any information or might know who she is, please contact the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Intelligence or the Hamilton County Coroner's Office. Thank you for giving these two playground does your time.